Yeah, we can if you want to.
I mean, like, and I won't take much of your time. I'm just curious because I felt like during the conversation when race was brought up, that there was like an uncomfortability, and it's not comfortable conversations. And I'm just like, I felt like you were very dismissive, and maybe it was because of the whole situation that was going on. I'm not sure, but I'm just trying to gauge like, are you do you acknowledge that white supremacy is a problem that we have?
Of course, yeah. So the reason I was super dismissive is because that person came in to basically do CCP propaganda or USSR propaganda, and that's just not what the live was for. So I was super dismissive of almost anything that person said because I just didn't really want to engage with them. But yeah, obviously, I think white supremacism or white supremacy is a problem. I would probably define racism a little more narrowly than a lot of people to my left would. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to say that it's not a problem nonetheless, or that there's not a lot of racial disparities that need fixed.
Okay, and then do you agree that like all as white people we have white privilege?
Yeah,
Okay. Um, all right. So I mean, I'm glad that you're open to those things. Are you? Do you acknowledge the fact that as white people we're racist?
I probably wouldn't reach you there, but it's probably just because, like I said, I'm probably going to define racism a little more narrowly.
So how? What's your definition of racism?
I think when most people use racism, it usually denotes intent. I don't think that the racist intent is there a lot when people talk about inherent racism uh, in white people. I don't think the intent is typically there. Um, so I feel like intent is probably required in order to prove racism, but that'd be the way that I define it.
So like, if I was doing something and I accidentally like hit you,
Hmm.
like I still hit you, right?
Hmm.
Whether I intended to or not, I
Hmm.
still hit you.
Hmm.
So whether or not the intention's there, like racism is racism. So regardless on the intent, like it's still racism. And I think that's where our a lot of the confusion and a lot of the we we resist, like have this resistance to these conversations and to
That
accepting the fact that we are racist is because we think of a burning cross and a white hood
Hmm.
when really, like, racism is racism, whether
racism
covert,
is
overt,
So,
intent.
well,
intent.
That's an
well,
incorrect
stop, stop,
definition.
stop,
Racial
stop, stop, stop,
discrimination,
stop, stop.
maybe.
Everybody stop. We're gonna do 1v1 right now. Okay, just a 1v1 conversation. If everybody wants to chirp in at the end, then we can. But we're just doing 1v1s
Apologies.
right now. Okay. So the reason that I disagree is that I think that racism requires prejudice. I think prejudice requires intent to be prejudiced. There could be maybe like what is it, implicit bias, because I know there's the one like really big nature study that studies police pulling over black people, and then the disparity between black people and white people drops whenever the nighttime comes. So there could be like an implicit bias conversation that we could have. I would still say that would probably meet my qualification for like intentionality, but I wouldn't say that like um, what most people would define as like inherently racist that white people do would qualify as racism. I would say that a lot of it's probably still going to be bad, and I think that we should be addressing disparate outcomes as much as we can, especially if it seems to be on racial lines, and especially if it seems to be as a result of our past racism, like redlining, or like or the lack of ability for people to build generational wealth because of Jim Crow laws. Like, that makes sense, and I can understand that argument for systemic racism, but I don't think I would feel comfortable saying all white people are racist, because I feel like prejudice requires intent.
Okay, so what if it was just a subconscious thing though? Like, because we've been fed, stereotypes and through media and every other outlet, like, like the harm is still there, the prejudice is still there. Like,
I it would depend. It would depend on the situation. Like, if we're saying like I'm walking down the street and I see a black person walking down that same side of the street, so I go to the other side of the street. And even if that person doesn't say that's racist, we could say that's probably racist. But I
And
don't.
what if you didn't even realize, like, what if it was just a subconscious thing because of the stereotypes that we've been fed, and like you didn't intentionally lock the doors when someone walked by, but you did, like that would still be racist, right?
Maybe. I don't know if we could definitively say, but on top of that, I don't know if I would feel comfortable saying that all white people are racist because of that, because of the implicit bias of certain white people.
Okay. I mean, I just think it's interesting that you're resistant to this term, and I feel like we get caught up on these things, like we will fight so hard to prove we don't have a racist bone in our body instead of just being like getting that energy and putting it towards like doing better every day, being less harmful every day.
I also
think
I
that's-
have a few questions as
Well,
um
let me put a bow
you guys
on
are
it, and
done.
we're good. Yeah, let me
Okay.
just put a bow on it, and I think we're good. So I agree that we should be doing whatever we can to address disparate outcomes. I agree that we should be doing whatever we can to, help these communities, obviously. But I think the problem is that when we're defining racism so broadly to say that every white person is racist, you're absolutely killing any chance of political reform that you can get, because every white person is just going to turn their brain off. There's just no social utility there. I don't think that there's any benefit of defining racism like that. We can still say it's bad. We can still try to address it, but I don't know if that comports with our historical definition of what racism means, and I don't know if that if that's like a politically useful term or a socially useful term. You can.
So just and I won't be long. I
Playing
promise.
Minecraft.
Just like if we acknowledge it, right? Because historically, like we don't talk about it. Like it's the thing we sweep under the rug and avoid at all costs. So if we acknowledge it for what it is, we understand that it's harmful, and we address it each and every time it comes up, then we'll have more understanding and not, like acknowledgement of it, and we can start preventing it. So when we do like this, see this stereotype that might come to mind, we will correct ourselves. We will actively be correcting, because it is top priority. It is on our mind, and we are addressing it each and every time it's happening, even the microaggressions, all of that. So we've never like even tried that. Like we've never even given it a little bit of a try as far as white people. We avoid it instead of acknowledge it. So maybe if we just tried to acknowledge it each and every time it comes up, then we could eventually start learning, okay, we have to eliminate that behavior from our actions.
Sure. I mean, I would agree from a person-to-person case, but I mean, first of all, I would say that our priority should probably be focused on helping the community over like policing our language super hardcore. I don't think that that's really going to provide any super long-term help. I think that like actually focusing on helping the black community, on reducing implicit bias within the police force, trying to provide like implicit bias training maybe to police officers, I think that would be a way more helpful step than like super tone policing people on the left and isolating the whole party and things like that. I don't think that that's a super useful or helpful place
That's
to
interesting.
put our attention.
So, we can't make an outward effect until we go inward, right? Like we can't, like we can never reform our way out of white supremacy. We can never vote our way out of white supremacy. Like we have to start within to begin that work, and then to make a change is outwardly.
I just don't agree. I think that I think that even Republicans could probably be convinced to provide police more training on implicit bias. I think we could probably convince even pretty, typically considered racist people to go for certain policies like that, or to build up the lower class. I think that
but I don't
the
really
best
care what
example
they
is like
want.
Joe Biden. I mean, like he was super racist in the 90s, and he did a
No,
lot of
he's
good.
still super racist. He's still very racist. What do you mean? Like he's still,
how is he
hasn't
still
changed.
racist?
What do you mean? How is he still racist?
I mean, you made a claim, just give an example.
He's a Zionist. He's been actively
How is he a
racist. He has
Zionist?
Wait, no.
he has
Oh, he's
not
for sure a
supported.
Zionist.
Hold on.
How is he a Zionist?
Before
Wait,
we
hold on.
literally-
we're talking
He is a
about,
Zionist, but-
stop.
Yeah, he says it.
Stop. Everybody stop. We're talking about races. We're talking about within the U.S. and we're probably talking about black people. Okay, being a Zionist
Well-
is completely unrelated to this. Okay,
I don't like to talk like I think we should be talking about white people personally, but
we should be talking. What do you mean?
like we should be talking about us and the stuff that
No,
we
I'm
do.
talking about the effect that we have on black people. I'm not talking about like. That's not what I mean.
Yeah, well, we're harming ourselves too, though, with it. You know that, right?
Yeah,
Feeding into to white supremacy, like it harms us tremendously.
I understand, and I'm saying
Seems
that
like an
most of the
unnecessary
policy
equivocation.
most of the policy prescriptions on a large scale we would probably agree with. I agree that a lot of the problems that you see exist. The problem is that one is probably going to be a terminology or a political advantageous disagreement that I don't think that this is the best way to convince people to look inward. And two is that I think that we can do electoralism without hardcore policing people for
So you want to
for
operate in white
microaggressions.
supremacy?
You're probably going to have to operate in white supremacy in order to dismantle it.
Oh yes.
Do you not engage in white supremacy?
Oh yes, I do. I understand that I'm a racist. I understand that I benefit from systems of white supremacy. I understand that I operate in these systems and uphold them. But I do like everything that I can to dismantle these systems of white supremacy. That's why I'm actively having this conversation right now with you.
Do you think it would be better to just do that on an interpersonal level or try to do what we can to make that more politically advantageous for federal reform?
So we can't use systems of white we can't use tenets of white supremacy to try to overtake white supremacy. Like we can't use parentalism to try to like help communities that we have that don't need help. They need us to get our stuff together.
There's... Are you saying that we can't... How do you propose that we fix this problem then?
We have to address ourselves with the harm that we're doing it, the harm that we are actively supporting.
Okay,
That's super vague. Like what
Also, Davina,
what
I
step
have
do
a-
you think that, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. What like meaningful step can we take to dismantle white supremacy?
So first we have to acknowledge it. We have to acknowledge our positionality in it and the harm that we do within the systems. Then once we acknowledge it and we start to understand like the tenets or characteristics of white supremacy, then we can start operating it with that tool at hand to where when we go through life in society and we have to operate in these systems, we are acknowledging things, we're calling it out, we're dismantling them little by little because we can't just obviously dismantle the whole entire country. We have to start with our community. We have to go through to our school boards. We need to go to our, hospital boards. We need to go locally and begin to dismantle.
How is that going to help like black communities who have trouble building generational wealth?
Because black communities don't need our help. They need us to dismantle systems of white supremacy. That's the only help they need. Like everybody needs, not just them. Everybody needs is for us to dismantle the systems of white supremacy.
Do we not need to help the black communities that we actively shackled for the whole beginning part of our country? We don't need to help those
By
communities?
dismantling the systems of white supremacy, yes.
Is there any non-social route that we need to take to help the black community?
What do you mean non-social route?
Like beyond just like making sure we don't do microaggressions. Is there any step that we can take?
Did you not? So, okay, so if you do me a favor, if you're actually interested, like if you're actually interested in like being a decent human being, look up whitesupremacyculture.info. Just read about the characteristics of white supremacy.
Okay, that didn't.
That doesn't
Probably
help
feels-
much.
I have so
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
so Davina, if you think that, let's say, so you're saying that the best way to tackle white supremacy or to get rid of it is to make sure that people are aware of it. So do you think that, let's just say that a person occupying the most powerful position in the world happens to come to office and this person is like a staunch in favor of like nationwide reform for education regarding like history relating to white supremacy, do you think that person would be a positive or like a negative to the case of like abolishing white supremacy?
So putting new systems within the system of white supremacy, that's
No,
going to be
no,
harming.
I'm saying so like if our whole idea is that like there needs to be a widespread deconstruction, and in order to do that, people have to acknowledge these things. Well, if someone who has the most powerful voice in the world is in a position and they believe these things, do you think that would be advantageous or like a negative to that whole position or the whole movement? Like if someone's in the position and is saying, hey, white supremacy is a problem and we need to deconstruct, and here's legislation that we can put out that reforms our education, that teaches these things, etc. Do you think that'd be a positive or a negative to this sort of like call?
No, it wouldn't. It would be putting a band-aid on a greater problem, like we continuously do. We try to, mask these things that are actually, embedded instead of dismantling the systems that they're operating in.
Sure. Okay. But what you said when was asked the question of we need to like get rid of white supremacy, how do we do that? You said, well, everyone needs to acknowledge it first, and then we need to all actively deconstruct. If that's the case, if we had a very powerful figurehead that was actively not only advocating for this sort of widespread nationwide deconstruction, but also was passing laws that would reform our education system. You said that it starts innately, it starts from young. So we had someone in the legislative branch passing the laws to reform education, to reform a lot of these things. Would that person not be beneficial to this whole idea? Like, I seem to think it would, unless you just think white supremacy can never, ever, ever, ever really be tackled at all, other than just like deconstruction.
Dismantling, yes. And we can't, like I said, we can't vote
How do
out
we
white
dismantle it
supremacy.
though?
So we have to literally eliminate our systems. Our current systems need to no longer exist.
What kind of systems are you referring to when you say
What do you
our
mean by
systems?
that?
Our government systems, our policing systems, our prison systems, our health care systems as they are. Like,
deconstruct the entire government?
Okay, wait, okay.
absolutely.
So if we get rid of every single thing, like get rid of the government, we get rid of police, everything, and people just live, is that the end of racism as a whole, like ever?
Well, so
are you
in
an
order to get to
anarchist?
that place, right, we would have there's steps to get to that place. So first we would do like reparations and land back, right? So we do reparations. We do
How do we do
reparations?
reparations?
How do we do?
There's no government.
How do we get?
Did you not?
Okay, we
So
have to
I said
assume
to
that there is
get there,
government.
we have to hit these certain marks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But how do we get that
These
government to do
marks.
that? We need to vote people in to be willing to, bring widespread policy on like reparations, right? We can't just like, it's not just something that just magically happens. You need to vote people into power to do these things, right?
I mean, no, we can create an impact to where they will with a demand.
What?
But who fulfills that demand though? We can demand reparations all we want, but we don't have like
enforces it?
who distributes money? Like who's the one that allocates funding? You'd have to vote people in power to get these things done, right?
Yes. So this is the part where I struggle because that's going reform, and we don't need reform. We need like
Revolution.
we need abolishment. We need to abolish these things. So
Yeah, okay, yeah.
while I know like with the prison, I've done prison reform for a very long time, and I understand that there needs to be people. I know I can advocate for reform and save people's lives right now, but I also know that that's only putting a band-aid on a way bigger problem. And even though 2 or 3 people might be saved, quote unquote saved, there's
let
still
them know what you mean by
thousands and
abolish?
thousands
Yeah,
of people
hold
that are
on.
harmed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we need to dismantle.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
well, when you say band-aid, like even like if we're talking about like a huge wound, let's just say like white supremacy is a huge wound, right? A band-aid is like that's just how things work. Like your wound is not going to heal overnight, right? So when you say band-aid, sure, maybe that's not going to fix it, but generally speaking, a widespread level of medical care is probably going to help your wound, right? And these are steps to take that. So you said we're going to get to a state where we abolish the government, and to do that, we need to have some reform. And you said reparations. I'm just wondering, logically, I would figure you need to have people in power that are willing to do these things, that are willing to allocate funding to do all these things. If you want to have widespread deconstruction, you probably need to have a powerful figurehead that is willing to advocate for that. If you want to have widespread reform on a interpersonal level, right, like on a youth level for education, you probably need to have some sort of widespread education reform that needs to be voted in. All these things seemingly are an electoral process. And even if you want to abolish the government entirely, that's why I asked the question. Do you think that the abolishment of all these structures would somehow mean that racism or sexism or all these things suddenly cease to exist?
No, they would be a greater step forward to cease to exist. Yeah.
Can I chime in one thing for you, Dave?
Sure.
So when speaking on abolition, it usually insinuates that you have created a system, whether it be entirely or bit by bit, that is there to replace the previous system. So abolishment is transitioning from the said system to a new system that is better fit for the purpose.
Correct.
Yeah. So what would that like transfer look like?
The
Would it
thing,
be like partial
the
government?
difference
Or?
with this, with the system, because as white people, we have to dismantle the systems and step away.
I agree.
Step
Yeah,
away.
but that's why I'm just asking. Like, once those systems are dismantled, does that suddenly mean the end of racism? Like,
I just explained that to you. Like, no. And that's why there's steps to get there, including like trying to get to an equitable, so we have equitable societies where like, that's why reparations are needed. That's why we have to fix poverty first and to get to these places where we can make these bigger moves.
I think
how do we fix how do we fix poverty or get reparations when we don't have people in power to allocate funding?
I mean, there's multiple ways to do it.
What are the multiple ways? Do we steal?
It's not, no, we don't have to steal, but we can do an impact. Like, we can create a large enough
Yeah.
impact. If we have enough people to actually want to progress, then we can.
Of course, yeah. But
create a
what if
big
one
enough
of those
impact.
people? What if one of those people happens to be a legislator, and they have a position where they can pass these bills to do these things? Do you not think that would be a positive?
Again, like, we can do these band-aids, but at the end of the day, we're still having to we need to do way far more than that.
Okay, sure. And you said reparations are part of the transfer process to abolishing all these things. So if that's the step towards it, logically, I would figure you'd be for that, right? Like, obviously, a step forward is better than no steps at all or a step backwards, right? Like, it's still a positive, irregardless on if it solves the entire problem.
No, because
need
then
a
you can
catalyst.
perpetuate harm in your ignorance, which is what happens on a regular basis.
Sorry, what was that?
I said no, because then in your ignorance you perpetuate harm, and that is historically what
Wait,
continues on.
ignorance of what? I'm saying about reparations.
Ignorance
If we
of the
pass some sort
reality
of
of the
policy
harm
for
that's been
reparations.
caused.
Sure, okay. So if we have ignorance, do you think education reform would be beneficial to fix that?
It just needs to be actual education. You don't need
Okay,
to polish
yeah,
a
of course.
turd.
Actual education,
right?
sure. So we need education reform, right?
Well, you keep trying to say this reform, so you're trying to take what is and make it better. I am saying it is trash and absolute positive shit because it's built on, as the host pointed out, in shackling people. Right?
Sure, okay.
And the
So do
whole
we get rid of
system-
education as a
so The
whole?
whole system is based on brainwashing people to make them pliable to perpetuate harm. And so instead of just acknowledging that and us creating something entirely new, you're saying, why can't we just reform what we have?
That's
and
okay,
why,
sure, okay.
Why
So-
would I polish a turd when I can just shovel out the shit and make something new?
Sure. So
I
if
think
we're
there's
gonna
a lot of good
if we're gonna
parts about our
if we're
education
gonna
system.
if we're gonna abolish education fully, okay. So how do people ever possibly deconstruct if there's no
Let's
education to ever
stop
teach them?
Polishing, just because the education system isn't the way you are accustomed to, doesn't mean education is out the window. Like, you keep having these all or nothing scenarios because you're trying to make it fit.
Sure, of course,
narrative.
of course. I would
And
just generally think though.
maybe stop doing that, and then you can have
Yeah,
like genuine understanding.
Of course, sure, but I would generally think public-private schools are like the most typical way for people to learn about these things, right? Like you probably learn about most
It's
of this
actually not.
from
And no,
schools.
I learned most of this on my own, right?
Sure,
Because that's
okay.
the problem with our
How
education
did you learn? How did
system,
you learn
right?
to read?
Is I learned at home.
You learned at home, so some sort of
Yeah.
education system, right?
At home.
Okay,
Right?
how did your
You
parents learn
just
how to
pointed
read?
out, because you keep pivoting, right? So you just pointed
This
out
is not a
public school
pivot.
system. If you actually look at the history and education system, right, it's all based on manipulating the masses, making them simple so that they are easily manipulated. And that's part of actually hiding all of the history. And that's where you get to the understanding of whitewashed history, right?
I
You have
want
the
a
whole
nation of
conquerors and the
not a
winners,
nation of
right?
thinkers.
History, and that actually fucks.
I
everything
agree.
up.
Again, I agree fully with if you're going to say that this is not the actual history that exists. I agree, sure. That's again why I'm saying advocating for education reform probably makes sense. You said to the point of
No,
your
you
parents
keep
or
pivoting.
you were homeschooled.
You're not
How did your
listening, guys.
parents learn how to read? I'm not pivoting. You don't like you can say pivoting, but unless you understand the points, then I don't know what that means.
I understand the
right?
points that you're making.
Sure. Okay. So
You
what
keep
what
trying
am I
to say
pivoting to
reform, and
from the
I'm
main point?
literally saying to you, why polish the thing that has systematically caused us harm when we can create something new? And that's part of actually getting out of an enslaved mindset, thinking you have to hold on to what you have right now without actually forging forward and creating something new.
Yeah. So if a system can create you harm, can it not create you good as well?
That is such an asinine thing.
It's not an answer to my question.
It would be a
I mean,
temporary
because
fix,
your
as we
question is
said.
asinine.
Okay, you can
that is
think
my
that, but it's
response
still not
to
an
your
answer.
statement, right? Because
Okay.
it is an answer, right? I'm answering you. If you stop cutting off in your trigger responses, you'll actually hear something.
I'm not cutting you off. It's just not an answer.
You
right?
are.
You're not going
It
to engage.
is.
So
It is an answer, right? You keep trying to say reform. I am saying create something new, right?
I just
keep
asked
trying
you,
to
do you think
hold
that
on to
system
what
could benefit
is,
you as well,
And you're
or-
trying to excuse the systematic harm. Like, I'm an Afro-Indigenous person,
Mm-hmm.
for example, right? So part of my history with education system
Mm-hmm.
is residential schools.
yeah.
So why are you going to try to make that system that has been used to literally erase the cultural identity of people, which is still what it does, by the way, and try to air quotes make that better when you can actually remove it entirely and create something new that actually benefits
What is the-
kids?
what are
that's
you
actually
creating?
based on the
What's to
science
say
of
we
What's
how
the-
can't
humans work.
recognize
what's
But right
the-
now, it's
part
all
of
based
this
on
system is
exploitation
bad and then
and creating
remove the part
people
that's bad?
to be
Wait,
just
wait.
little cogs in the wheel that you want.
Yeah. Okay.
stop.
What's the new
Wait.
thing that you're proposing?
I
I'm
can
just
promise
curious.
you that if you listened and not like and actually listened to what Des is saying, then and not like every time he's speaking like you're interrupting,
I'm
I
not
can guarantee you
interrupting.
you'll gain something from it.
I'm not interrupting. You guys just keep
Well,
using
Des
this term.
said-
I want to clarify.
Des said to
So
shovel up
I'm
your
just,
shit,
I'm just,
too.
I'm just, this is my question. What is the thing created in you? What is your proposal for a new system to educate people or to have people learn about these things?
That's not been your question. You've been hopping all over with your questions because I've said it multiple times already, but it's not what you want the way you like it.
I don't
so
know,
You keep trying to
is-
reframe things.
That Des,
Speaking of
the
reform.
none of the voice boxes are lighting up. Was that Des or am I tripping?
Yeah, that is does.
Yeah, that was
Okay, yeah. So what was the new system that you proposed? Like, what does it look like? And how is it going to benefit these things?
Dude, that's something that can be done collaboratively. I mean, I have my own ideas,
What's the system?
but we have to create one.
Yes, what does it look like?
Like you need it on demand right now, right? Because you're trying to find reasons.
Pretty much,
that you can
if
be
you
right
are
and just
proposing
dismiss
a solution.
My idea. Okay, here it is. My
Sure.
idea is actually basing our system on the healthy development of humans instead of the exploitation of them.
Okay.
And there's a lot of ways to do that. But what
Mm.
you're trying to do is hold on to these exploitative systems because they're familiar.
What's one of
You're
the
just
ways?
like, well, it has some good in it. If your tire, right, is flat, and if it doesn't work but 3%, why are you going to try to repair that tire instead of get a new one?
You can do. Can you not also fill up? Okay, I don't even know what that
There
exactly.
you
We're talking
see, there
about-
you go.
we're
So
not
what
talking
you're trying
about
to do is hold on to what
You can
is,
also wait. You can
despite
also.
how it does not
That's a great.
function.
That's
your
a great
problem.
analogy because you can also fix a tire. You can blow it up as well. You can get a new one, but those two things are not like.
Right,
It's
and
not
do you
one
know
or
that
the
if
other.
you try to patch the tire, it is still not going to be as dependable as if you get a new one that's freshly made. Like you're literally trying to.
But you
make it
literally don't have
what
a fucking
you want
tire.
instead of
You don't
listening
have
to
any
solutions
tire.
Yeah,
for
okay,
people
and
that
in this
actually
case-
Talking about
suffer.
getting a new
in this
tire,
case,
you're
your
talking
system
about, like,
is a
making
tire.
a new tire.
Yeah. So what is your new tire? What is the system? You didn't answer my question.
I
What is the
did
new thing
answer
you
your question.
proposed?
One, I said we had to create it. Two, I said it had to be built on.
What is it?
developing
What is
healthy
it? What is
humans
it? Can I get
based
any
on
answers?
science. Fucking listen to what I'm saying.
What is it?
Well, that's not an answer. I mean, say
It
What
is
is
an
it?
answer.
What is the
Because
system?
thing is that
Oh, we
you
have
guys
to
are
make
still
it.
operating in whitewashed understandings
Stop
of being a
talking
label
about our
of a
current system. I want
pre-existing
your-
system.
I want
I'm
your
actually
proposal.
answering you. You're holding on to labels, having pre-identified things,
You literally
which is literally
offered
stunting
nothing
you
to the
from
table.
creating something new.
What is
You're
your
bringing
proposal?
nothing to
Des,
the
Des,
table.
what is your new proposal?
So we don't need to explain a detailed
Oh my God.
new proposal right now. Like you're just trying
Just
to
just an
Wait,
outline.
so
I don't want you guys
real
to
fast.
be specific.
This is the problem. And
I
think this is
was.
where-
I was actually too specific for you.
I just want an
and you
outline.
dismissed it because you wanted a label. instead of me
Just, like,
actually
create a
describing
new
to
one.
you
That's
what
the
it is.
system.
No, what I
No,
heard
I'm
is
not. Can you listen? Okay, can you listen and not cut me off for 30 seconds?
Sure, go
you've been
ahead.
talking
But you're not listening, so it doesn't fucking matter, does it?
because you're not saying anything.
Yes, I am.
You
I've
just
said
said
lots
create
It
a
of
doesn't
new
matter.
one.
It doesn't matter. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So what I was saying is that you can create an education system based on the data that we have of how to actually build healthy human function. Right now, it is built on exploiting, demeaning, and making people small so that they can fit into the cogs in the wheel of this shit that you guys are holding on to. And so I'm actually being very specific that you can review data, see how it is that, and this is already happening in different Western places already, like Sweden is one of them, right? Norway is another. There are places that are actually implementing the psychological data of how to actually develop healthy humaning.
And how do they implement
instead
that?
of-
Wait, hold on.
How do they
It's
implement that?
actually,
Did
well,
they-
it's a lot of things.
Did Sweden
It's not
have to-
requiring them
did-
to have a
did
9 to
Sweden
5.
have to disassemble their entire government in order to make their education system better?
No, they're polishing turds. But this is the thing
Well,
is
you
that
just
they're-
cited
they-
them as
Then
something
why
that
did
we
you
should
cite
be
yeah,
doing.
because it's the closest thing we have because no one's actually.
Do you want the
doing it.
closest thing or do you want the actual thing? I'm so confused. What is the stance here? It's just all over the place.
This is
It
the
isn't all over the
problem.
place. You're not listening, and this
Yeah.
is,
You just let you
Just
talk.
brought up
You
the
don't
whole
listen.
point-
It's not
the whole
saying-
point-
you don't care.
Hold on,
It has
you
to be
just-
about you being right and holding on.
Because
to
you
what
don't have
already
a
know.
solution and you're
It's
acting
really
like you do.
wild.
It's just posturing. That's the
You
problem.
just pointed to your
It's not
solution.
I think they're too busy trying to be debate bros. And
No one's trying
Yeah.
to be a debate,
that-
bro.
No,
that's
I
you
asked
are
you-
them.
busy
I
trying
asked
to
you-
actually
Like
gain
I'm
anything
trying to
coherent.
have genuine
That's the
conversations.
problem.
I don't debate. Like I don't
I
debate
am-
at all.
No,
I've
I'm
been
not.
actually
Fine.
very precise, and because I
No,
don't
you
have a
haven't.
label for what's being called,
You're right.
you're dismissing it as not
I'm
real.
not dismissing anything.
Yes,
the
you are.
preciseness
You've
you
dismissed
gave-
everything
Des,
I've said.
The
Des, just to
preciseness
be
you
clear-
gave was just polishing
Cut
another
me off and
turd.
done all kinds of dumb shit.
Okay, Des, just to be clear, I'm sure if you have an education system that makes complete sense, I'll be all for it, all behind you.
But
Like
find
undoubtedly.
something else
right?
wrong with it.
The
Deflect
education
from
system.
that too, because it's not what you
Are
want.
you going to interrupt me or
I'm just doing what you do.
this is actual debate, bro?
He's gonna
stuff.
keep on asking the same question.
Yeah.
I mean, you're
until we
going to
give
do
him
the same
answer
thing over
exactly
and
what
over
he
again. You're not
wants.
going to listen to what I'm saying.
Sure. If you
I
want
know what the fuck I want
answer
to.
he wants, then
Hello?
then
There's no
that's fine.
etiquette.
If you
Right?
want an education
You don't give a
system,
shit.
that's nice. That's nice. But all you've said is we will have something new, and it will be
Nope,
like
that's not what I
Western
said.
countries.
See, you're not
but those
listening.
Western countries aren't very good, and we need an education system that teaches
No,
healthy
that
human
literally
interaction.
isn't what I said. But
You
see
didn't
how you
explain
keep
what that even
regurgitating
meant.
things so that you can be
Kelchi,
right?
Kelchi, you should shut the
That's
fuck
your
up. You're a
whole
faggot.
move, bro.
It's funny how you say my name, but okay. But yeah, it's just like you said, an education system that teaches healthy human interaction. What
Yes.
does that even look like?
I
What
was
is healthy
explaining it
human
to you, and then
interaction
you started
even mean?
mocking me.
Yeah, we
I
just
didn't
said that it
mock
looked
you at
like
all.
Sweden,
Yes, you
and then we
did.
said, how did Sweden get that?
If I mocked you, I apologize for that.
Well, actually, I don't give a shit about your apologies. Just try not doing it.
Okay, then okay.
Wait, Des,
I'll try not
didn't-
doing it then.
Des, didn't
I'm
you just
actually,
point?
I'm gonna actually leave. I'm gonna sit
Okay,
down.
Des, didn't-
But I'm gonna go too because this is
Yeah,
Yeah, I have school in Sweden right now.
Host, if anything, like what I would really appreciate if you could just look up that website. I promise you, if nothing else, it will just be a read that you just throw away.
Yep, I'll take a look at it for sure.
If you could DM me it too, that would be nice. I
I've
appreciate
had
it.
things to say about each of these subjects.
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, let's go with the most recent one. I'd offer a median response where we utilize reform to bolster our current systems while simultaneously building up the new system that's to replace it. So that way we can both look at the data and find the new parts that work and look at our system, see if any of our parts are those new parts, and we can reform parts we can reform. And if it turns out the system is too broken to reform into what we've decided is the better option, then that's when we start replacing it. That's like,
The problem is that they're going to say that we've already done that, and we've tried reformist policies throughout America, and it wasn't good enough, so we just have to fuck it all.
Or those reformist policies are going to be white supremacists because they're done in the current state.
it's so
Which upholds
blackpilling.
it.
It's so blackpilling because that just reinforced everything. Like I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I just don't think there's a really practical way to achieve a lot of the aims that you're having, and I think that you rely on a lot of like really fantastical things in order to address these problems that I think are real that we should try and solve through electoralism because it's at least something. And then the conversation ended in, well, we need to overthrow the entire U.S. government in order to reinstate a new communist system in order to, build the entire system from the ground up. And what that system looks like is that we'll create it.